Welcome to another Buttercups Bulletin. I'm Paul Johnson and I'm joined again by Ellie Talbot, who's a pharmacist and pre-reg tutor for Buttercups. So as pre-reg tutors, dealing with hundreds of pre-regs every year, we often get them ringing up and asking us for advice, and it's kind of one of the things at Buttercups that we feel that we do quite well. We don't just provide training for you, we provide support for our pre-regs throughout the entire year as well. And one thing that comes up again and again is how best to record records of evidence, how to manage those, how to work with their tutors so that they're most effective. So we wanted to share some of our thoughts with you on that just for the next few minutes. So first of all, why are records of evidence so important, Ellie?
Oh, well, records of evidence are really important because throughout the year you have several performance standards that you need to demonstrate. It's not just about your assessment at the end of the year, it's also about your full pre-registration year, which you need to show that you have come to those standards and that you are performing them well to your tutor. So records of evidence are one way that you can record that you have performed those standards to that appropriate level. So they're really important that you make sure that you have them, and then it's a document that you can refer back to should there be any problems, and also that the GPHC can request if they need to have a look at your year.
Very good point. I think it's fair to say that often pre-regs focus so much on the exam, which they know they've got to do at their end of their pre-reg year, and sometimes things like records of evidence and proving that they're achieving those 76 performance standards tends to get forgotten, but you kind of do that at your peril, because we have heard of cases where GPHC inspectors will go into pharmacies where there's a pre-reg and they'll ask to see your portfolio of evidence. Another situation which has arisen was around pre-regs where they had to change tutors during the year. What was that one about?
So the tutor unfortunately broke their leg, so they had to be off for a several amount of time, which meant that obviously as you have to have a tutor, they were switched tutors. And unfortunately this particular trainee had not got any physical records of evidence because their previous tutor didn't require it. Their new tutor did, so unfortunately they then had to spend a lot of time making sure that they then re-showed that they had got to the correct standard for each of those performance standards.
Pretty much had to start over again, So what do you think makes a good piece of evidence then, if you're putting together a record of evidence, and you can record that in many different ways, can't you? I mean,
so there's lots of different ways. You've got witness statements, so that you can get someone to say that they've witnessed you doing a particular thing, or that you have done something and then you put a description down in a bit of paper that says exactly what you have done. And a good piece of evidence is that it's concise, but it contains a lot of information in there as well, so that it will actually cover quite a few of the performance standards that you have to cover.
Yes.
So rather than just one or two, it covers around about 7 or 8.
Right, okay, so aim for those really high quality pieces of evidence that cover quite a lot of the standards. You'll be doing yourself a favour and your tutor as well, I would say. Okay, excellent. So how many so far, during the pre-reg year, how many performance standards in particular should the pre-reggers have signed off, do you think?
So what we would normally recommend for people is when you get to around about week 13, that you should have a few signed off, but you should have quite a few of them. You should start to have maybe 1 or 2 records of evidence for some of the other standards, but you should have a few of your standards signed off by week 13. By the time you get to around about week 26, we'd expect you to have around about half of them signed off, and then you should have a piece of evidence started for at least almost all of the standards. And then by the time you get to week 39, we'd normally recommend that you had around about 90% of them signed off, but that you're well on your way with the other ones as well.
One of the things I've been asked on a few occasions is when you get to the 39-week appraisal, should you have met all of the performance standards? And the answer is no. You should have met most of them, but you've still got a quarter of the pre-reg year to go. So there is still room to develop and to achieve some of those also. So in terms of the number of pieces of evidence you need to satisfy your tutor that you're reaching that particular standard, what are we aiming at, would you say?
So each tutor will be different as to what they require, but what we would normally say is approximately around about 5. So 5 per performance standards, basically. I mean, there are some performance standards that will only require 1, such as your first aid, for example. You normally won't need to provide anything else over and above that. But for the majority of them, we say roughly around about 5.
Yeah. And records of evidence, to start with, at the beginning of the pre-reg year, they can seem really, really quite time consuming, can't they? You know, writing things down or putting things into the computer. But generally you find that as pre-regs get more and more used to them, they get much quicker, they get much smarter at how they produce those
and also
pieces
if you
of
have a really
evidence.
good quality piece of evidence, then it covers more performance standards. You're then having to write less.
Exactly, and certainly as a tutor, you know, if your tutor is a bit reluctant to sign some of these off, you know, try and make it as easy as possible for them. Which kind of brings us on to our next point, which is what if your tutor isn't signing off your pieces of evidence? What can you do in that sort of situation?
So the first thing to do is have a discussion with them. So see if you can have a meeting, figure out what the issue is. So is it to do with the quality? Are they wanting you to write more? Or is it to do with quantity, or is it simply down to timing that they're wanting to sign them all off in one big bundle? But the best thing to do is remember that this is your year, and it's down to you to make sure that you have all of these things signed off, not down to your tutor. So the earliest you can, have a discussion with them and find out what the issue is.
But whatever, you need to be doing them, because if an inspector comes in and expects you to, he will expect to see that that is there for you as well. So what about keeping track of your records of evidence then? Because there'll be some that pre-registers will achieve quite quickly, others that will need perhaps a little bit more planning. What's the best way to keep track of your records?
You definitely need to keep track of them. Make sure that you have some sort of log so that you can figure out that one record of evidence, which performance standard it covers, so that it means that you can gather them quickly whenever you get to your week 13, 26 and 39 week reviews. We'd normally recommend that you did some sort of table so that you can work out which standard relates to which record of evidence. For those Buttercup students, you do actually have a log that's available on your Beehive that you can download, so you can use that one there.
Okay. I think one of the most important things to take from this is that as a pre-reg, you are already a professional registered person, and you are expected to take responsibility for your own development. So you've got to do whatever you can to meet those standards. You can't kind of expect people to do it for you, because that's kind of the real world as a pharmacist, isn't it?
So it's all about taking responsibility for your own learning throughout the year.
Okay, I think we're there. So as always, we're very interested to hear your suggestions about future Buttercups bulletins. So if you'd like to leave your comments at Twitter or Facebook, we'd be happy to look at those, and we'll see you very soon.